All right, so that'll take us on to our second and final new book of the week.
Yep.
That is Lois Lane, issue 10, Greg Rucka writing with Mike Perkins on the art. So, a lot of two-page layouts in this one, actually. Wasn't prepared for that.
Unexpected as to what this issue became, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not that I forgot about it, but with having such, having only 2 books really this week, not that I put it off, but I was like, I still got to read this morning. So when I sat down to read it, I was like, oh, I'm on a time crunch. And then it started going into a different place, and I started getting 2-page spreads. I was like, oh, this is not going to take as long. Then I started reading what those 2-page spreads were, and I was like, oh, okay, no. They're 2-page spreads, but they are, even though it's not like the Bendis style word vomit of a bunch of exposition, there's a lot to chew on in those 2-page spreads.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, for the most part, it's not stuff that we're unfamiliar with as DC readers, because it's kind of recapping the idea of a multiverse. Because the first half of the book is basically Renee, who's with Jessica Midnight and Sister
Clarice.
Thank you. And she's with them, and she's trying to explain that you may be able to help with this kiss of death, right? You may be able to do something about this. And she's like, what are you talking about? And she's all confused. And what we find out is happening here is that Jessica Midnight, much like some of the other characters, is having essentially this crisis internally of like multiple memories or versions of herself, like sort of like existing within her. And she's like, can kind of remember she used to do magic in this other life, but can't really remember how. And she says that in a bunch of different ways. Also, was it just me, or was Renee Montoya looking a lot at Michelle Rodriguez in this issue?
A lot.
I saw it a few times in this. Yeah.
Some reference pictures may have been used.
Very possibly. But she's kind of explaining this. So we get a bunch of 2-page layouts that have, because the first one is like just like split into 3, and we have like a bunch of different Supermen, which for the record, don't think I didn't notice that Reeve and Margot Kidder flying from the movie in that top chunk. And Batman and Wonder Woman. So the Trinity, right? We've got 3 different.
Matt, fill me in. What's the Egyptian Superman one from?
I don't think that's Egyptian. I think that's the Aztec. And there was a story about him.
I can see that.
Yeah, landing there and how different he would have been.
All I know is I need it.
Yeah, there's that. Well, then you have him with Lori Lamaris, right, with the mermaid girl. You have the Killing Joke era Joker, right? That's where that's from. The
and the
swashbuckling
original
Batman.
Yeah, and the original Detective Comics Batman, but the looks of
the
it.
The swashbuckling one, it looks like I think it's the color scheme, but it looks like this could be a Batman that decided to be Raz's successor.
Yeah. You got the year 1.
Well, there's also the Pirate Batman Elseworlds.
Oh yeah, I know it's from that, but it looks like it could be that.
Yeah, and you got the year 1 cover there as well, and then Wonder Woman, you've got a bunch of different versions as well.
Yeah, Robot Wonder Woman. But what I like though too is that where it talks about, it kind of almost goes in defiance of Morrison's multiverse, where there's a set number of worlds, right? But then each of those worlds has a different outcome to them, so it's kind of cheating. Well, Rucka takes that here to we're going like there's basically an almost infinite number of worlds based on each decision, up to the point where the numbers are so large that they should be patently impossible, but become incredibly probable and then ultimately inevitable. So basically saying like originally with the multiverse, it was anything you could imagine, there's something out there, right?
Yeah, and this kind of still works in context of Dark Multiverse. So, they're not the core 52, but they all still exist, however briefly.
Right. However briefly. And so that's where I like where we have Rucka taking something with what's coming with death metal, right? I don't know how much he was aware of any of this going on with how this fits in with the story and how it fits in with what's going on in Superman and whatnot, but once you start getting the rest of these pages and how it fits in with Midnight and who she was, and like I feel like I should know where she was a witch, but I think that's new. I think that's something he's adding to the character now.
Yeah, just before I move to my next point, I just want to say that this brief bit of a Swamp Thing there makes me remember that I really want Perkins to do some Swamp Thing. I'll just mention that as I'm on that page.
Well,
but who's the I'm assuming Chinese Green Lantern. I don't recognize that one.
So that reminds me of the Tangent universe, to where you had this. They took the names and names only of them, and where you had like the Superman, who was the main villain, and you had a Batman who looked more like a knight. It was a whole thing.
I'm intrigued. If any listeners know, please tell me.
Yeah.
So it looks like the Tangent Universe.
So basically, this is the first time in a while that we've been reminded that technically Lois and Superman did come from another universe, technically, and Renee kind of brings it up that Lois, I don't think she's from this world originally, even though we kind of merged them, obviously, with Superman Reborn. We did do something to kind of smooth it out. But this idea of okay, there's multiple versions of the timeline that you actually have existing within you. Lois kind of has that, and Renee's kind of acknowledging, and Midnight's kind of having that. And I kind of like, obviously, anytime they reiterate the idea that anything that happened mattered, because everything is important, even if things reset and we do different things.
It's a very Morrison approach, isn't it?
Yeah. So I kind of dig that, but it's interesting that we're using that as a story mechanic here, where it's okay, you can do this, you knew this in a different timeline, and it does almost make me wonder if there is some kind of plan to maybe not have everyone, but have some characters actually get to remember their past or utilize skills they had in different versions of themselves or things like that.
And it's playing with Midnight as a checkmate agent, but also it's that's who you were, and that's why you were in that asylum, because your brain's having a hard time merging both. But we can also tap into that, but as well as the magic. So basically, Lois almost has a ace up her sleeve here with dealing with Kiss of Death, that Lois knows about Kiss of Death being occult based, but not exactly the ins and outs, right? So this is her counter, and we get to a scene with Lois and Superman where she's hiding out. And he keeps running.
This is a weird thing structurally, actually, because the first half of the book is with Montoya and Midnight, to the point where I thought the whole issue was going to be that.
Where you just know Lois for most of the issue.
Yeah, because you see Lois in the first page typing away and working, but it's with narration of Renee talking to Midnight, and I felt so we're just going to sort of Lois is going to be sort of seen in the background working away and whatever's happening, and maybe just tease at the end. But no, then at the halfway point, it shifts completely to Lois and Superman, where he's just making sure she's okay. And there's this running gag here where he keeps speeding out and coming back because there's an oil fire somewhere, and then there's also a suicide attempt and stuff. He keeps flying off and coming back.
And she's basically I can handle, I know what I'm doing, but thank you. And then that plays into what Kiss of Death wants to do, because Superman's telling her, you're really good at what you do, and I know you don't need my help, but I'm always right there. And so when Kiss of Death does show up, because Lois orders a pizza with a credit card,
which was set up nicely, because Superman, when she's telling him that she's being careful, she makes a point of mentioning, I'm not using credit cards, I'm not doing this. So as soon as she says, I'd like to order a pizza, I'm going to use my credit card. You know exactly what she's doing. She's intentionally drawing her out.
So Kiss of Death shows up and goes to shoot, knowing that Superman's taking care of some typhoon halfway across the globe. And that's where Jessica Midnight goes to use her magic, right? But she has almost a panic attack, because she kind of remembers, but not really. And Sister Clarice steps in, and this is where I remembered Sister Clarice has been in another Rucka book, which then I had to go pull up, right? So she steps in and does some magic and swaps Kiss of Death with
herself.
Is it with herself?
Yeah, she's the one teleports. Okay. Yeah,
that's right.
Because they're not with Lois. It's worth mentioning here. They're still wherever they are, right? And she teleports her, and so the big cliffhanger of the book, because there's a whole bit of tension here where Kiss of Death shows up with Lois
to shoot,
and she's kind of and Lois is kind of stalling, and it's she's got the gun pointed at her. She's Superman can't come to help you, she's too busy, and we're seeing Midnight try to perform the spell and whatever else in the world. And she's guys, now would be a good time for this. Now would be a good time. Anytime you're ready. And then Sister Clarice steps in and switches bodies. But the big cliffhanger, of course, is that as the teleportation happens, the gun's being fired. So she immediately, as soon as she lands, she actually shoots Renee, because Renee happens to be standing in front of her. I love the visual of her pulling off her head to reveal the skull, the mask.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
I love it. It's great. So that's the cliffhanger. The cliffhanger is Renee bleeding from a bullet wound, saying "nice shot," as Midnight is clearly still freaking out. And why wouldn't she be?
Right. But yeah, so when Sister Clarice brings up that she was the instrument of God's mercy, I just think it's hilarious that that's the same week that the Justice League book came out with the end of the Spectre.
I know. I thought that because there's a very Spectre description of themselves.
Yeah, so there was a Final Crisis book called Revelations, and that's where I remember Sister Clarice coming from, to where Crispus Allen was the new Spectre, which, of course, Crispus Allen popped up in another Rucka book in Gotham Central, right? And so he became, right after, at some point, he became the Spectre throughout that era, and Revelations was all about the Book of Crime, I think. It's really worth checking out if you haven't read it. It's Rucka doing a lot of his Batwoman and a lot of other stuff that goes throughout. But she shows up, and there was, she was the counterpoint, right? The yin to the yang of the Spectre, where she was the mercy aspect known as the Radiant and stuff. So I like, again, Rucka bringing up stuff.
So I do have a question here, though. I have a question in that. Okay, so they've teleported. If this was the plan, they've teleported Kiss of Death there. Kiss of Death's now in a room with Midnight and Montoya. And well, that might not have been the exact combination expected.
Right.
What's the plan now that they've got her here? Because Kiss of Death might just, kill Midnight. Like,
I'm assuming the plan
Midnight
was to keep her trapped within the circle.
Yeah.
Very possibly, yeah.
Right, because we don't know, because she shot her from across the room.
I'm just curious what the plan is from here. And obviously, things might be changed up a little bit because Montoya just got shot. But
yeah, I'm sure that's where Montoya came in with the question stuff, where she can put her down until
she can
proper authorities get there. Yeah, well, not with a bullet wound in the gut though. So yeah,
that's cool.
But yeah, really. Really, really good ending. Not all what I was expecting in Lois Lane, to go on this diatribe of the multiverse and who these people are, and Renee remembering that she was a cop in Gotham. So is that not the case now? Right? Has she always just been the question, or was she like? It's this. I love it. Like you're saying, it counts, and it kind of does fly in the face of Morrison, but it also leans into Morrison, and that's why I like Rucka. Like they both wrote on 52. Together, so we know that they can work with each other's ideas. So it's a lot of fun.
So that's pretty much it. Artist Perkins, like before, there's some faces here or there that don't quite work.
There's only one panel in particular I really hated, I think, in this issue. Usually there's a handful. This is less than usual, I would say, but it was probably a more egregious error than usual. It wasn't just a funny looking face. It was when Superman's going in and out solving the problems with Lois, and the final one where he gets back, she puts up her hand to stop it, to interrupt him, and so she can just carry on speaking. And the perspective is like really off. Like her hand seems like really far out in front, but like still full sized. It really threw me off. And I spent far longer on that panel than I should have done, just trying to figure out where her arm was coming from. It was awkward.
Yeah, it's been consistent since the start, and I really love the overall look of the book. There's these oddities here or there of like perspectives or facial expressions maybe been a little bit off, but for the most part, I really like the tone that the art gives the book. So
I think I felt it more in this issue though, because most of the art was so good, especially on all the multiverse stuff, where I thought it was some of Perkins' finest work. And then this panel was one of the most egregious times that I've felt that these kind of odd moments from Perkins. So it stuck out even more than usual.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
All right, Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give this a 9. I mean, I don't have as much of the issues with the art as you guys did. Those layouts with the double pages were really cool. Yeah.
Connor?
I'm going to give it a straight 8, I think.
I will also... I give it an 8.5.